So you want to know exactly what it costs to live right here in Seattle, Washington. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about exactly that. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty details about rent, mortgages, utilities, transit, groceries, everything that you need to know about living here in Seattle, Washington, and we're going to get into it right now. What's going on, guys? It's Justin Gazaba, and this is Living in Seattle, Washington. This is the channel where we get into all the deep nitty-gritty details about living right here in Seattle. I'm a local real estate broker in the metro area. I want to give you the details and information that you need in order to make a good decision, decide if you're moving across country and think that this is a good spot for you, or if you're living in town, you want to get to know the area better, the Seattle metro, including Bellevue, Kirkland, Tacoma, and all the surrounding areas in the Puget Sound. So if that's exactly the details and information you're looking for, go ahead and start now. Just hit that subscribe button, tap that notification bell, and you'll be notified every time that we upload a new video so that you can get all those details and information you're looking for. In this video, we're going to go into cost of living. Now, this might be one of the longer videos we put together because there's just a ton of information to go over here. We're going to talk about rent prices, mortgage prices, home prices. We're going to get into groceries and healthcare and even childcare. So as we get started here, do me a quick favor. I want to know if you are thinking about making a move to the area, you already live in the area. Two things really quick. What do you think it costs for childcare? Do you have kids now and maybe you're in Maryland and you're paying for childcare there? What do you think it costs here? Maybe you're in Texas or whatever, or maybe you're thinking about having kids and you're wondering what that looks like. I was truly surprised when I reached out to past clients and friends of mine that have childcare, that have done that, and to see what those costs are. So drop that down below in the comments. Test yourself. Don't wait until the end. Do that now, and then when we get to that, see if it lines up with what you thought. So, all right, guys, so let's get into this video. Like I said, we're going to talk about cost of living right here in Seattle, Washington, the Seattle metro. We're going to talk a little bit about Bellevue and the east side, just for comparison, because we say Seattle, but it's often the Seattle metro statistical area. All the neighborhoods and places where what people are finding when they're looking to move here from, like I say, from Texas or California, Maryland, the East Coast, New York. When they come out here and they look up Seattle real estate, they're often drawn to places like Bellevue, Kirkland, Juanita, Bothell, and that's all really on the east side. Those are all independent cities, right? And then we've got Seattle, which is a long, skinny metro here on the Puget Sound. There's a few lakes that break up the Seattle from the east side, from Kirkland. Lake Washington is massive, right? These aren't just different neighborhoods, they're different cities, right? Kent, Renton, also different cities, as we go around. So just want to kind of, clarify, we're kind of talking about that metro statistical area, even down, things are a little bit less expensive down in Tacoma, and as you get closer to the core, obviously those costs increase a little bit. So one interesting thing to note is the Seattle metro area. A lot of those, what we would call suburbs, even though they're different cities, or have been growing at a fairly rapid pace, where we see costs, increasing steadily in those areas, in those outlying areas, insofar as Seattle. So for a long time, even though there is a cost differential between there, it has been really affordable to live in Seattle. So let's get into the details. Okay, so Seattle has been one of the fastest growing cities in America, on and off for the last few years, right? So in 2017, there was a report that over 1,000 people a week were moving into the area, which is just, 1,000 people a week. That's 52,000 people a year if that trend were to continue, right? And so tons of people making their way out in this direction. And so I've got a bunch of notes up, so I apologize if I'm looking around, but I want to make sure to get these numbers right for you. In 2020, there was a report that came out that said that for every 2 people that left the city, 3 people moved in. So we've just continually seen this growth over the last little while. And there's some studies out there that say that they expect the population to increase by 250,000 people in the next decade, right? So if you look at that, those numbers don't quite add up. That actually feels a little bit low. One of the things to note about the Seattle metro area is that when you look at downtown Seattle, the skyscrapers, Belltown, it feels like a downtown, it feels like a city, there's skyscrapers, but most of Seattle isn't that, right? As soon as you get away from downtown into Queen Anne, which is just north, and then north into Ballard and Green Lake and northeast Seattle and those areas, we move away from skyscrapers very quickly, and you typically only see about 6 or 7 story buildings for that. We don't have a lot of condo buildings outside of downtown, now that there are, but most of Seattle is single family style homes where you'll have a yard and that sort of thing. Now, we are starting to see a lot of infill. Ballard's a great example of that because it was designated an urban village all the way back in the 90s, and they wanted that area to increase in density because of its good access to downtown. Same with Rainier in the southeast, Rainier Valley and Rainier Beach. That was also designated an urban village. So we are seeing a lot of infill there where old, maybe derelict home, maybe not so derelict, but an older home will get sold to a developer, and that home will come down, and then 4 or 6 townhouses will come up in its place. But townhouses are generally, 3 stories. So there is some density increase there, but it's not like Manhattan yet, right? There's not a lot of row homes and that sort of thing. We're getting there with the townhomes, but there's not a lot of skyscrapers and a lot of condos. We actually see a lot more single family style homes than we do condominium buildings, and some of the nicer condominium buildings that are going in downtown are actually really, really nice, what you would kind of consider a luxury style or close to condominium, right? So that's one of the things that Seattle, when we look at home prices and everything, is there's not a lot of density, there's not a lot of homes. It's mostly single family, and so that actually creates a little bit bump up in the price point because you've got to be able to afford that yard and everything else. So that's something to think about. So when we look at why is that all important? Why do I talk about how many people are moving here and the general zoning of the area? Is because really it just ends up being a supply and demand issue. We just have, since back in 08, 09, there just hasn't been a lot of building and development, not consistent with the millennial generation who is now looking to buy homes, right? So there's a deficit of homes. And given that everything is zoned single family, that just puts pressure on the market, supply and demand, right? Okay, so let's talk about downtown condo buildings in downtown Seattle. So there's a couple that I just wanted to go over. I just took a quick search and I wanted to see what those prices are as of this recording. So there's a building called First Light, very cool condominium building, steel and glass, very well done. And I looked for 2 bedrooms, to try to keep things consistent. Anywhere from 1.3 to 3.6 in that building, just recently closed or currently available. There's a building called Spire, again, a very cool building, steel and glass, very cool condo, high-rise building, and we're looking at somewhere around the 1.3s, like I say, right now, as of this recording, for a 2-bedroom. There's a smaller building, Coda. They have some available units that were under 600. Really surprised me, but that's great news if you're looking for that condo lifestyle, something achievable there, really easy to get into, and then an even price point for our area around 1.4 to get into there. There's the Thompson, where I'm seeing stuff between 800 and 1.3 right now, and then there's also a building called the Nexus. I didn't pull those numbers. So right now, the median home price here in Seattle is around $850. So then I wanted to share with you just what, if you needed a 4-bedroom home, what that might look like. And so I looked up the median for home price. Now remember, median is the middle, not the average, but the middle. So there's some below and there's some above. But the middle price for a 4-bedroom home in Seattle is about 1.16. right now, as of this taping, we've seen some steady appreciation, so those numbers subject to change, right? Now, on the east side, because the east side, we do so much work over on the east side, we're helping people make moves all the time, back and forth in Seattle, over on the east side in Bellevue. So here's the numbers for Bellevue, right? So, okay, so the average home price in Bellevue right now, 1.5 and 1.525, and then if you need 4 bedrooms, right, that makes a big difference. A lot of homes are 3-bedroom, a lot of older homes in Seattle. 4 bedrooms becomes 1.678, 998. So you can see that little bit of a bump for that extra bedroom in those areas. Obviously the east side is a fantastic option. It's kind of been those suburb cities, Totem Lake, Kirkland, Juanita, obviously Bellevue, Redmond, that kind of northeast side over there, Bothell, tremendous areas, but those numbers there are just for Bellevue. So since we kind of talked about, home prices and what those medians, what those averages right there, what those numbers look like, obviously subject to change as time moves on and interest rates move around and all that normal stuff. But that kind of gives you an idea of the lay of the land over here. It's not uncommon if you're going to be renting a home to be paying, $3,400, $3,200, and you can get into a townhouse and buy for about that same price point. So you just got to be flexible. I know that when we lived here for a while in an apartment, people always want to compare, what you could buy for your rent. But I would never, my lifestyle then, I was sacrificing to be in a small apartment in order to continue to save and save and save. So when we went to buy, a 3-bedroom townhouse. That was the move that we made. So those comparisons of what you could buy for the rent money, I've always found to be strange. It's more about your lifestyle, what you're looking for, how you're going to set yourself up for success, because it's not just the sticks and bricks of the house. It's the neighborhood, what amenities does it offer, what your lifestyle really looks like. So anyway, let's get into food. I want to talk about kind of how these numbers work. So they create, it's kind of like the consumer price index, they create a baseline. That baseline is a 100. So what they do is they go across the United States and they say, okay, based on this average of 100, if it's above 100, it means that you're paying more than the national averages. If it's less, then you're paying less than the national averages. So if we look at food, we're right in there. And over here in Seattle, we've got the home of Costco, we've got PCC markets, the metropolitan market. We've got all these organic and even your Fred Meyer, Kroger to you on the East Coast, carries a ton of organic food, and everybody's pretty active over here. But I don't know if it's because we're right on the port or what, but our food, compared to the rest of the United States, it comes in at a 108 when you look at those numbers. So not much more expensive than you would expect to pay anywhere else in the country. Austin is quite a bit more expensive to us. I had looked at that and I thought they were at like a 130 or something, which surprised me. But here in Seattle, we've got the port, we've got access to the Alaska fishing fleet. Obviously, we've got close ties with the Klondike and all that stuff going way back. But crab, salmon, seafood, fish, all that stuff. We've got really good access to that. And some of the best oyster houses that get national acclaim here in Seattle. So on average, that food, just looking at my notes, coming in at a 108. And so insofar as like going out to eat, it's really easy. $12, you could spend $50, on a decent meal, and then the prices go up from there. 2 people mid-range, you're gonna probably spend $100-120. And surprisingly, I've been so surprised at the cost of fast food because you could just go to a nice sandwich shop and get yourself a nice sandwich, or you could spend about the same at a fast food place. It ends up being $10-12 to eat at fast food. So just can't imagine why you would do that unless you're really, really in a pinch. So the other thing that I wanted to get into a little bit is kind of just the overall health of the area, cost of healthcare. Now, we live in a spot where people are active, right? We've got folks that are cycling into work. Seattle's made a concerted effort to get better bike lanes. Now to me, I'm not doing that, but I see a lot of folks doing that, and man, oh man, there's definitely some spots that are safe and easy spots to ride on, right? But I see it more and more. It is something else to see. Those guys are brave. I mean, that is tremendous, because Seattle has awful traffic, and but we've got a lot of folks that cycle into work. We've got good access. I think I've talked about in the past out. There's out towards Issaquah, which is 45 minutes from Seattle or so. We've got great trail networks. Even here in town, we've got a few big parks, Carkeek Park and Discovery Park. A lot of trails, a lot of runners go out there trail running all time. Even in the drizzle of the winter, folks are always out there going. So when we look at the cost of health compared to everywhere else, it's actually less expensive. We come in out of that national average of 100, we come in at a rating of 85. So easier, healthcare costs are more affordable here. Okay, so let's talk about transportation. So transportation, again, Seattle, downtown Seattle, our metro system, we rely heavily on buses. We're just now starting to get into light rail, and the geography of Seattle is really a north to south geography. Puget Sound on one side, and then Lake Union and Lake Washington on the other side, so it makes it long and skinny. And there's a few, it's very hilly, and there's the cut and bridges, and a few bridges, nothing like Portland. North to south here is really easy. So if you live in Ballard, you can jump on an express bus that runs down 15th right in. You can get on another express bus that goes into 99 right into downtown there. If you live on the other side, on the east side of I-5, you've got to cross I-5, but your north to souths into downtown are fairly easy to do. With a light rail, fairly easy to do. Now that's all the way up at the Northgate Mall, which is kind of the northern point of Seattle, winds down through 45 minutes or so, can get you down to SeaTac, the Air Seattle's, the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, SeaTac, really its own city. It's about 45 minutes outside of Seattle. So, but you can light rail that now, and it only costs you a few bucks. You pay by the stop, right? So you just put in the stop. It's going to cost you $7. You come into town, that sort of thing. In general, though, and just recently met a gal that had moved out here from Maryland, and she had said, gosh, it's so easy in Maryland to jump on a train, use public transit, get across town, but it's much more difficult to do that sort of thing in Seattle. So if you live in Capitol Hill and you're going to meet friends over in Ballard, it's going to be a tough commute to get. It's kind of a running joke. You live in Seattle and you're an hour away from anything in Seattle. But that does make it more difficult. There's not a good bus route to get you back into Capitol Hill. I know that when I've gone over there, I've taken the 44 over to UW, jumped on the light rail, and then down into the heart of Capitol Hill. And that's kind of the easiest public transportation to do it. But when you look nationally, get back to those national numbers, when we look at transportation, that baseline of 100, Washington State in and of itself is at a 113, a 113 and a half, and transportation here in the Seattle area is almost 140 at 137. And so that's really like the cost of gasoline. We have a high gas tax to pay for the roads. That's where all that comes from. That's where it's a little more expensive for your car insurance, and then vehicle registration. We've had some stuff to try to bring those tabs down to $35, but they just keep tacking on fees. I have a hybrid, and they actually charge me a $75 fee because I'm not paying enough taxes at the pump because I fill up less than everybody else. So a little bit expensive in that regard, and a little bit car dependent, which, gosh, if you're able, if you get a house with a garage, no problem. But with the infill, there's a lot of street parking, so just be prepared for that. So we've talked about that. We've talked about groceries, health, just overall housing. We kind of went into those numbers in the beginning and looked at what the average home prices kind of look like. Obviously, I always tell folks, if it's out there, we'll find it. There's definitely other prices where you might think like, you know, if you're, depending on what area you're looking at, right? This is Seattle, but if you're if you're gonna come work for Boeing and you're gonna be down at the Renton plant, chances are you're gonna live in Renton or Kent or SeaTac or maybe even further out east into Issaquah or something like that. It's gonna be different. So insofar as the housing overall, you know, out of a baseline of 100, we're up at 309. We talked about the median home price. Utilities here are actually a little bit less than national averages. At 100, we're down at 68. So, you know, for me, for my utilities, my townhouse, pay 30 bucks a month or so for gas. It's about, you know, the bill for your electricity every other month. So surprisingly, the sewer bill is more expensive than the water bill. I don't know how that works out that way. It seems like you can only have so much water coming in to go out, but that seems to be a trend there. And the electricity bill, you know, like so we get billed every other month, so it ends up being about 50 bucks a month or so, 60 bucks a month, depending obviously on a few things. Came through and you know, way back and, you know, put all LED lights in to, you know, conserve. So transportation we talked about, miscellaneous, just general living your life kind of stuff, goods, services, clothing, restaurants, that things that you just day-to-day kind of life. We have that kind of a little bit higher at 120. One of the things in the beginning of the video, we talked about childcare, what that looks like, and if that's something that you're thinking about starting a family or have a family where childcare is something that's going to be important to you. Interested to see what you drop down below. But let me show you. I had done kind of like a Facebook poll, reached out to some friends and did some other stuff. So I've had some friends that moved down to Des Moines, which is right kind of by Kent, Des Moines. They had lived up here. They actually lived in Ballard area of Seattle, and they have somebody who's really young, two young kids, and so they are paying $417 a week for their youngest and $370 a week for their toddler, preschool age. And so, you know, when they had looked originally, you know, I have heard people say $1,000 a month, but that's just not realistic. And so, want to make sure to get you some good information there. My friend Autumn, she used to work here in downtown Seattle, and a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016, she said that she was paying $21.70 for childcare in the downtown area of Seattle. I've had a couple other friends that had moved further south down into Tacoma. The rates are about $1,000 to $1,500 per month, depending on the kid. So looked in Seattle 4 years ago, and it was twice the price of Tacoma. So and Tacoma is getting more expensive too. So the one thing that a good buddy of mine recently just had a kid, and what he said, I found this to be super interesting. You might be familiar with an HSA, a health savings account. Well, there is also something called, apparently, you'll Google this, look into it, ask your HR about an FSA that allows you to put money aside for childcare ahead of paying taxes on it, so that you can do that. And what he said is by doing that, and then by looking for companies that will offer discounts for prepayment, he's been able to, you know, he's basically said that when he's an accountant, so he built out the spreadsheet, all this stuff, but he was basically saying that it ends up being about $12 an hour for like a toddler, preschool age, and then $16 an hour or so for a newborn. And through doing the FSA and then looking into companies that, if you do a prepayment, will allow you to get some kind of a credit. So for him, he was putting in basically buying $500 in advance that give him a 20% credit. So his $500 became $600, right? So he was able to get that cost to come down to be about 10 bucks an hour for childcare. So look into that, check in and see what that really looks like for you. I was really surprised. I mean, I feel like we're easily seeing, you know, $2,500 bucks, $3,200 bucks a month in childcare costs, just based on some of these numbers that they shared with me. If you live in the area and if you live in the area and you're doing better than that for childcare, share your secrets down below. Really appreciate it. If you're considering making a move out here, let's connect and do some better homework so we can get you dialed in, figure out basically, you know, what neighborhood's going to suit you best based on all the criteria. We're helping people make that move all the time, from, like I said, from Manhattan, from New York, from California up here. I've had folks where we've done video tours, the whole thing. So whatever you got to do to reach out to us, we got your back when making a move. Really appreciate you staying with us and checking out this video, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, talk to you.